So therefore, a person who seriously desires real happiness must seek a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by Diksha or initiation. That is implicit here. And what is the qualification of this guru? Shabde parecha nishnatam brahmani upashamashrayam. Shabde, the word shabda means in general word, but the highest word or the most sacred word is the word of the Vedas or the word of the sacred scriptures, because it comes directly from the Supreme Lord. And therefore, the word Shabde, the Shabde here actually indicates from the Vedic literature. He should be conversant with Shabde Parecha Nishnatam. So there are three things here. Shabde, that is the words of the Vedic literature. Pare, transcendental. So the Vedic literature has passages on many topics. But what is important here is that such a guru should be very conversant with the transcendental topics given in the Vedic literature. And therefore, and not just that, Nishnatam, is perfectly knowledgeable in this Brahmani, in absolute truth, and Upashamashrayam. He should be fixed in detachment from material affairs. So the translation here, just a minute. So the translation here, the qualification of the bona fide guru is that he has realized the conclusions of the scriptures by deliberation and is able to convince others of this conclusion. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, should be bona fide spiritual masters. Now, who should approach such a guru? It is a proper disciple. And how should the disciple approach this guru? It's given in the Mundaka Upanishad. Tadvijñātam sa gurum eva abhigachet samitpani shrotriyam brahma nishtam. So to understand these topics, this Shabde Parecha Nishnatam, a disciple should approach a guru to understand these topics. Tadvijñātam sa gurum eva abhigachet. He has to approach a guru. Samit Panihi. What does Samit Pani mean? A Samit is a firewood which is used for a sacrifice. So the guru has some work to do. And the disciple says, I am ready to serve you. What do you need for the sacrifice? This firewood. So the firewood is an indication that the disciple's role is to help the guru in his service to the Supreme Lord. In his mission to the Supreme Lord, the disciple comes and says, I am ready to serve you. And if this sincerity to serve is a qualification of the disciple, and the qualification of the guru is Shrotriyam Brahma Nishtam. He is Shrotriya, the one who has heard from the Shruti. That is, he has heard the conclusions, and Brahma Nishtam. He is fixed in the absolute truth. So let me come first, one by one, to each of these words and what they mean in our own lives. Tasmat. Right? Tasmat is therefore. How does a living entity come to a conviction that he or she needs a guru? It is not that getting a guru is a fashionable thing. You have a guru, I too will have a guru. One should feel an inner need for it. And how can one feel an inner need for it? There are various reasons for it. In this very same section, prior to this verse, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is a conversation between King Nimi and a sage called Prabuddha. So King Nimi asked this sage here, okay, oh great sage, please explain how a very foolish materialist can easily cross over this Maya in this world. There seems to be Maya in this world, and how can one cross over? So first and foremost, the important thing that is required here is this jignasu. The person should be curious, as a disciple should be curious that it seems that I am bound in this world. It seems that I am not free, but I have a desire to be free. This has to arise. This desire that I have to be free should arise. And how will this desire arise? Either it can arise by serving some great souls, and by through the medium of the purification of the serving these great souls, or helping somehow, this mode of getting this curiosity is called Sukriti. It is called Bhaktyonmukha Sukriti. Through bhakti, through service to the Supreme Lord and his devotees, one can get this Sukriti, or one can get it by reading some sacred literature too, Jnanonmukha Sukriti, where one understands there is something beyond, right? So when one feels that I am bound in this world, therefore one begins to question here. When does one begin to feel that I am being bound in this world? Sometimes, I'm not saying all the times, sometimes a person can get into introspection. Based on these Sukritis, he can get into a mode of introspection that, let me just introspect and see what is it that I am doing in my life. I am always trying to get an identity in my life. Most of us are just trying to get an identity from people outside. We work very hard in our office or in whatever profession we choose. We work very hard at home. Why? Because we are yearning for somebody to tell us, he is a very diligent worker. He is a very intelligent person. He or she is a faithful person. He or she is a loving person. Everybody around us will be giving some adjective for us, either in their mind or explicitly by words. And we are looking for that adjective. That adjective is that identity for us. And sometimes people are in various modes of Maya. They just want to hear that he is a very violent person. He's a very fearful person. Some people like to be given that identity. Some people like to be rejected by society. Some people like to be accepted by society. And with that identity, we move on in life from childhood almost till death. But somehow by Bhaktyonmukha Sukriti, that is with good actions of bhakti, some faint or a shadow of devotional service, one begins to think, why am I dependent on an identity given by somebody else? Isn't there any identity for myself? An identity given by this world, an identity given by forces of nature around us is an external identity. And this internal identity is what this path of spirituality gives. So this is one motivation. This is one tasmat that comes into picture. And when this identity comes, one begins to question, what is it that I'm doing? And so Sri Prabuddha, who's an enlightened sage in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, accepting the roles of male and female in society, the conditioned souls just unite in some relationships, false relationships. They constantly make endeavors to eliminate their unhappiness and unlimitedly increase their pleasure. But one should see that they inevitably achieve exactly the opposite result. In other words, their happiness inevitably vanishes, and as they grow older, their material discomfort increases. So Prabuddha further says, somebody who wants wealth, he finds that wealth is a perpetual source of distress because it is very difficult to acquire. And after acquiring also, nobody is satisfied from it. If one wants to have permanent happiness in heavenly planets, even there it becomes a problem. Why? Because once a person does go to heaven, he says, even in material heaven, the living entity is disturbed by rivalry with his equals and envy of those superior to him. This rivalry and enviousness, which you see in work life, which you see sometimes in family life, you see even in the heavenly planets, everywhere it is there. So then, a soul who has had the right association of some saintly persons begins to think, is this what life is meant for? And that is when a person approaches a guru thinking, I don't think I can solve this problem myself. I need help. So here in this picture, we see Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is one such acharya, and there are many acharyas in this world, even now too. Srila Prabhupada is pictured here in the Tompkins Square Park. When Srila Prabhupada went to the West, he was dancing and chanting here in this park, in this park, and all that he had was these simple kartals that he had, and one of his, not even disciples at that time, a person who liked Srila Prabhupada had a drum. Just with that, he started chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And when he started chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it so happened that people around him were very much attracted, and they came around him, they sat to hear him, they sat to hear him singing, they started dancing with him, etc. Many, many, many years later, decades later, somebody who took a video of this showed this very same video to some of the sannyasis and the Mathadipatis in Udupi. Udupi is a place in Karnataka which is famous for Ashtamathas, which were established by Madhvacharya. When the Mathadipatis saw this video, they said, he is a true Guru. We couldn't have done this. We have been practicing brahmacharya all our lives. But here, he is this person who has gone to the West, he's gone to US, and he's in the midst of all these wonderful people here. Many of them are beautiful to look. Many of them are giving him adoration, etc. And yet, he seems to be not at all disturbed. That is what this verse says here. He is Nishnatam. He's perfectly knowledgeable. This when one is fixed in devotional service, then one becomes perfectly knowledgeable. It's related to each other. We all may be perfectly knowledgeable, but we are not fixed because that perfection has not come. We are knowledgeable, but not perfectly knowledgeable. We think that we have understood some scriptures, but that understanding remains theoretical, but it is not factual. One has to be established in it, and the person who is established in it is the Guru. So tasmat, when a living entity realizes that he needs help, then that tasmat he will manifest and he goes and approaches a Guru. And such a Guru has to be fixed in the conclusions of the sacred literature. So with this, I'll pause here. Any quick thought that somebody would like to share or a comment? Nothing? Okay. We'll continue again with more details about the qualifications of the Guru and the disciple in the following days. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.